Good morning. And I'm sorry, I picked a red sweater this morning, not thinking. Apologies. We have an election coming up here in Canada. I'm going to show you some numbers from the US election, just so people here understand how important it is to go vote. Yesterday, I mentioned that we might have consumer price inflation of actual products, yet a low CPI, ergo low inflation, which will lead to low rates. Let me show you something. But first, Trump's victory adds a record $64 billion to wealth of richest top 10. I'm going to be eager to see the reports of the hiring sprees that happen at these companies. Do you think they're going to hire? I am shocked by the amount of people who think that, an increase in stock price or a tax cut is somehow going to lead to more employment. None of those reasons are why people get employed. All right, the way you get the president is you get 270 electoral votes and you become president. However, the popular vote does matter. But the problem is many people think their vote doesn't matter. It absolutely does. Let's take a look at the number of votes that were cast. Total votes cast, 140,633,993. However, a quick check of the U.S. government will tell us that there are 262,083,034 voting-aged adults in the U.S. That means 121,449,041 people didn't bother to show up. Do you think maybe a whole bunch of people didn't care? All right, the whole idea of having high consumer prices while having low inflation and low rates. As I said yesterday, as I've been saying many times, there's multiple different inflations. There's the reduction in the value of money. That's real inflation. There's a change in the consumer prices, and that's what we measure. That's what you feel. But as I've pointed out many times, the CPI can be manipulated because it's heavily, very, very heavily influenced by the price of gasoline and the cost of debt. Let's just wind the clock back a little bit to April 2nd of 2020. The price of oil had crashed. The government of the United States felt that was a problem. They called up the Saudis and OPEC and they said, hey, cut production. We need those prices to go back up. April of 2020, CPI without gasoline was 1.3%. Not far off from where our CPI is now. But toss in gasoline and oh my God, we're in deflation. That's such a massive problem that the United States called their enemies, the Russians, and the rest of OPEC and said, hey, can you help us out here and cut oil production? Look up the topic. It's history. It happened. From that point forward, consumer prices just kept going up, especially gasoline. Now, in here, of course, was Russia invaded Ukraine, which caused this big spike over here. But you can see the trend. CPI peaked in June of 2022, and it's been coming down ever since because gas prices have been coming down ever since. Oh, it's because of interest rates, right? Sure it is. Sure it is. It's very coincidental. So now, if the U.S. has a different take on things, they want low oil prices and low gasoline prices, that's what they're going to go after. The carbon tax here in Canada might disappear. They might push for technical deflation. That's a feel-good story. Especially if you want to hide the increase in consumer prices from tariffs. Because you could hide a whole lot with cheap gasoline. Cheap oil prices, cheap gasoline means cheap interest rates. What Trump's win means for Canada. It's going to mean a lot. What? We shall see. It'll be interesting.